muddy water. Get up in your boy. That's right. One of the most important figures of 20th century American music. The incomparable Muddy Waters. Managed by, I love that track. I absolutely love that track. I was listening to Muddy all last night, preparing for this. I was like, he had swag. He had what the kids call swag back in the 40s and 50s. So it's important to understand where that came from. But we are back here on WLTH 1370 AM. It is 7:20 p.m. That means we only got about 40 minutes before I got to get out of here. So I got to keep going, folks. I got to keep rolling. A very important happening just happened within the world's economy. And I think a lot of people did not recognize it. A lot of people didn't realize it because our media, I don't believe, does a good job of informing the public. And that is that China and Brazil and the BRICS countries in general, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are developing a new currency to supplant the US dollar. Recently, China and Brazil have reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the United States dollar as an intermediary. The deal will enable China, the world's second largest economy, and Brazil, the biggest economy in Latin America, to conduct their massive trade and financial transactions directly, exchanging yuan for reals and vice versa instead of going through the American dollar. The expectation is that this will reduce costs and promote even greater bilateral trade and facilitate investment, the Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, Apex Brazil, said in a statement. Now, China is Brazil's biggest trading partner already, with a record $150.5 billion in bilateral trade just last year. The deal, which follows a preliminary agreement in January, was announced after a high-level China business forum in Beijing. China has similar currency deals with Russia, Pakistan, and other countries. Now, this is important because just recently, the BRICS countries, that's an acronym, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have officially overtaken the G7 countries, which are the rich countries that America is a part of, us, Britain, France, Germany, etc., in share of the world's PPP GDP. Mexico officially is applying to join the BRICS alliance. That is our neighbor directly south of us. The BRICS countries now contribute 31.5% of the global GDP, with further projected growth. Saudi Arabia is jumping into this as well because they have a problem with Joe Biden, particularly the Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, is not a fan of Joe Biden's. And they are working with Russia and China and Iran. Also, he is actually convinced OPEC, which is the oil producing countries, they all get together and join OPEC. They are cutting oil production. So oil is about to be a lot more expensive in this country. That's why you see it already climbing back up. I am sad to say, folks, that the days of $3 gas may be gone forever. We may never see a day where gas is $3 again. Now, The world's major economic powers are moving away from the US dollar and working towards creating a new global currency. The BRICS alliance, consisting of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the BRICS, is said to be collaborating on developing their own currency. This initiative is seen as a strategy for promoting shared objectives among the BRICS nations and reducing dependence on the United States of America. According to a top Russian official, this move towards a new global currency will boost trade relations between friendly nations. Amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, this is an opportunity for Moscow to explore more Indian markets and vice versa, with the aim of promoting a common currency. New Delhi, Beijing, and Moscow are the nations that now institute a multipolar world that is endorsed by the majority of governments in the world. Now, State Duma Deputy Chairman emphasized the need for a new currency that does not rely on the US dollar or euro, but rather forms a new currency capable of benefiting shared objectives. He said its composition should be based on introducing new monetary ties established on a strategy that does not defend the US dollar or euro, but rather forms a new currency competent of befitting our shared objectives. And here we are. This is why personally, since the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, I've been very hard on the Biden administration for a reason. All of this could have been avoided. All of this. The mainstream media narratives that Vladimir Putin just woke up one day and decided to invade Ukraine was always nonsense. Complete nonsense. This started back in 2013, 2014 with the Maidan coup, when the United States under Barack Obama and Joe Biden helped overthrow Ukraine's government to institute a more Western-friendly government. And that government started shelling the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine. And so they've been killing Russians, the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, for 8 years now, way before Putin even started. And so this happened because the United States has purposely infringed on a deal that we made back in the early 90s after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. We said to the Soviet Union when it was dissolving and the Warsaw Pact was dissolving, we said, look, we will not expand NATO to surround Russia, because Russia is very much leery, very sensitive to being invaded from its western flank, because it's been invaded multiple times. It's been invaded multiple times. So they're like, hey, you guys are encircling us. And we said, no, we won't encircle you. So what have we spent the last 30 years doing? Exactly that. We spent the last 30 years doing exactly what we said we wouldn't do. If you look at where the NATO countries were in the 1990s and look at them now, you will see that, including involving Finland, which just joined the alliance this week. Finland just joined this week. We pretty much have Russia surrounded. Now, Vladimir Putin told George W. Bush, back in 2007, he said, look, you guys have to stay out of Georgia and Ukraine. Okay? That's our backyard. That's our insurance. If you guys can't stay out of Georgia and Ukraine, then I'm going to have to take Crimea, which is a part of Ukraine, a part of Ukraine that was part of Russia. This was 15 years ago. This was 15 years ago. Barack Obama, when Barack Obama was in power, one of the reasons why we didn't have a full-out war then, or even this sort of proxy war that we're in now, is because Barack Obama said, look, Ukraine will never be as important to us as it is to Russia. Ukraine is in Russia's sphere of influence, just like Canada and Mexico are in our sphere of influence. We would never allow Russia to arm Canada or Mexico. We wouldn't do it. Matter of fact, in the 1960s, when they tried to arm Cuba, that's when you had the Cuban Missile Crisis. It almost ended the world because the United States was not going to allow that to happen. Russia to put missiles 90 miles away from us. Now imagine if Russia and the Soviet Union at that point had put missiles in Toronto and Ottawa and said, yeah, within a few feet of the American border, basically, a few miles of the American border. That wouldn't happen. And so I will say one thing Donald Trump did say that I believe is true, that if he had actually won re-election, this wouldn't be happening. Now, I know a lot of you, because you watch the corporate media, think that is, that Donald Trump, is in debt to Vladimir Putin or something, which, again, has never been fully proven. But the fact is, Donald Trump does not have the same hard-on for picking World War III with Vladimir Putin that Hillary Clinton did and that Joe Biden did. And so this probably wouldn't be happening. And this BRICS alliance that we're seeing currently, where they're about to cut the United States out of trade across the world, would not be happening. And what you're seeing with Saudi Arabia, with Prince Mohammed bin Salman, where he's talking about cutting oil to spite Joe Biden and spite the United States, that probably wouldn't be happening either. Now, as I said in the very first segment, I think Donald Trump is a lifelong crook. I think he's corrupt. I'm completely fine with him being arrested, because I think they should all be arrested. But there is some small difference in terms of how he handles these people and how the military-industrial complex loving liberals handle this situation. And it is costing us dearly. I just saw recently Kenya, which is an emerging economy in Africa, and all the African countries are siding with the BRICS countries. They are siding with Russia. They are siding with China. Kamala Harris was just in Africa trying to gin up whatever support she could muster up, and they laughed in the woman's face. They laughed in the woman's face. Here's what Zambia's opposition leader had to say about America while Kamala Harris was there.
A country that has toppled so many governments in Africa, that has led so many coups in Africa and other parts of the world, a country that has killed so many of our leaders in Africa and other parts of the world, the killers of Patrice Lumumba, those who toppled Kwame Nkrumah, those who killed Nasser, those who killed Muammar Gaddafi, today are coming to teach us about democracy. A country that has been built on brutal force, on enslavement of other human beings, on the humiliation of Africans, the exploitation of Africans, the plunder of Africa, today is coming to teach us about democracy. If you have no respect for the dignity of others, if you have no respect for the sovereignty of other countries, you cannot claim to be a champion of democracy.
Once again, that was Zambian opposition leader Fred Mbembe, who blasted Kamala Harris when she was visiting in Africa. These people, the people who run our country, the establishment, the status quo people, they have created a mess that all of us are going to have to live with. Inflation is going to be sky high. Things we are used to paying for that are affordable will no longer be affordable in a world where the dollar is no longer the world's currency. We're already seeing a situation here in Northwest Indiana where I talked about this a few weeks ago, where I guess I will give you the information again so you can talk about it. But we're already dealing with a situation where NIPSCO is about to raise electric rates by 16.5% in September, in a few months, just in a few months. And then they would rise again in March of 2024 and July of 2024. So all of our economic outlooks are about to get a lot cloudier without this, even without this. And as I've said before, you guys can give feedback to the state of Indiana, who needs to approve this price hike at www.in.gov/IURC/. That's www.in.gov. /IURC/. So I'll say it again at the end of the show. But all of our economic lives are about to change when this happens. A lot of this was precipitated by this proxy war in Ukraine that was purposely agitated by this government. And so be careful, folks. Be careful. Don't make it. I wouldn't make any big purchases if I was any of y'all. I'm not buying no house. I ain't selling no house. Because it's about to be a cold winter. Let me see what this caller has to say. Hello, caller. Thank you for being patient. Thank you so much, caller, for being patient. I know you've been on the air for a long. I'm on the hold for a long time. So what's happening?
Hey, Scott, I just wanted to call back and ask you this. I got some old ruble money over here. You bring me your dollars, I give you my ruble. Now listen, let me tell you something. Russia's going to be drinking oil and vodka. That's all they got, son. And then Venezuela, that's got the greatest oil shelf in the world. And it's in the northern hemisphere right here. And the pipeline up in Alaska is being opened back up. They done start drilling as we speak. So oil is going to be back down around affordable prices. Now, wait a minute. And Brazil needs to invest in some condoms. They got an outbreak of herpes.
So does everybody.
Wait a minute. Now they need they number one in the world. They need to close down them nude beaches and worry about that. Now when you get to China, China is everywhere, right?
Yes.
Now China it's more Chinese in Africa than Africans in Chinese. It's more Africans in Africa than Chinese in Africa. You look around, you don't see no Africans in China, but you see a lot of Chinese in Africa. Every time you turn around, they won't talk to Miss Kamala. Every time you turn around here, you're bumping into an African. So if this place is so bad, why is everybody over here? Russia over here, Brazilians over here, and Chinese is over here, right? Now, I got kind of tangled up on that one. This is the greatest empire that has ever stood. I don't know how long it's going to stand, but, you know, it's standing right now. I don't want to be nowhere but here. The ruble is going to be dead. So that's why they're trying to put
Russia doesn't seem to be suffering too bad because their economy has actually improved since the conflict started. And
the only reason why is because of the oil. That's all they got. What you want to be eating? Oil and sardines. I don't mean the oil that be back in sardines. I mean the oil, crude oil. That's all they got.
Well, you can underestimate the rest of the world getting together. Brazil, Russia, India, China. That's most of the world's population right there. They
you don't have nothing but people. They walking around in slums. They can't even afford a toilet.
They're 31% of the world's GDP. They're 31% of the world's GDP collectively and growing daily.
Of course, when they feed a person, when they give a person a quarter for $10 worth of work, yeah, they got the biggest GT, right? They don't pay the people nothing, okay? They got all that fake gold. They got fake diamonds. I mean, India is a mess. That's why you got them all over here with gas stations and businesses. If their business is so booming, why are they over in Britain? See, man, you try to prop up all these other countries, but nobody wants to live here. Well, they go and take a moonshot.
Plenty of people are moving to other countries. What do you mean? Like, again, I agree with you that the United States has been the king for a while, but that does not mean that things aren't changing, sir. That doesn't mean that the world markets are prepared to change.
You down on Fifth Avenue and in Miller. You're not going to leave. Listen.
Of course I'm not leaving. My family's here.
Okay.
It's not about hating America. I have an issue with the United States government because the United States government makes life harder for us. Okay. And the things that they have chosen to involve themselves with have made all of our lives harder and will continue to make all of our lives harder.
We're not standing no hut, okay? We got good money.
You may be so.
I'm gonna tell you something. I ain't worried about that. As long as I make $25 an hour, my people make $25, $30 an hour, $45 an hour. I'm not worried about that, okay? I'm not worried about the ruble in Russia. I'm not gonna have no iced tea with a dab of oil in it. Okay, the only oil I'm gonna have is the one that what they call it, the olive oil from Starbucks. I taste that. I don't like it. All right, man. You have a good day. Okay.
All right, God bless you. You call it anytime, brother. It's all good. Hey, look. Hey, a lot of people you can underestimate the BRICS countries. You can underestimate countries that have large swaths of the world's population and GDP if you want to. All I'm going to say is this, be prepared. Be prepared, like I said, for a very cold winter coming up. A lot of people we may be opening up and doing some drilling in Alaska, but with climate change, who knows what those types of climate disturbances will do. Fracking and all these things are very destructive to the environment. Who knows what's going to happen. So once again, for everybody who is who needs the Indiana Regulatory Utility Commission website, once again, so that you can reach out to them about this rate hike that's going to happen from NIPSCO in September. Like I said, we're in April now, so that's about 5 months from now, less than 5 months from now. Reach out to them, www.in.gov/IURC/ that's www.in.gov/IURC gov/IURC. Let them know. Let them know that economically we cannot take these types of rate hikes. This is going to hurt so many people, and everything else is about to get a lot more expensive, possibly. So please take just a few minutes out of your day and let them know that we cannot take the rate hike from NIPSCO. When we come back, we're going to get into who've been the winners of this pandemic when we get back.